Now that we're married, we can finally play some board games. We can sit back, relax, and forget about the worries of the world. What games did you bring? I brought Pandemic, and then after that I thought we could play Pandemic the Cure. So after that absolutely amazing wedding day, we had about one day off before we went on our honeymoon. And because of the COVID restrictions, we had this huge plan of traveling to New Zealand and going skiing in Queenstown. I mean, we've been to Queenstown before, but we went in the summer and we just absolutely love New Zealand. So we had to change our plans and we decided to do several Airbnbs in the state. I live in Australia, so we had to travel. It was like a mountain Airbnb, which kind of was this beautiful place which had this stone fireplace and a secret passage behind the fireplace, and it was absolutely off the grid and it was this beautiful view of the mountains. And then later on we traveled to another part of the same set of mountains and just really enjoyed our time away, playing board games, bushwalking, seeing wildlife. And then the following week we went down the coast to a beautiful beach house, played more board games, took long walks on the beach and watched the sunset and the sunrise. And it's just been an amazing time. And you know, when I look back on 2020, I won't be thinking that 2020 was this huge negative year of all these negative events, but you know that some positives have come from 2020. And when I went on my honeymoon, what did I get to play? Well, it was an ample time to play some board games that I haven't had a chance to crack open. The first game I played right in front of this beautiful, gorgeous fireplace that we had lit up, and it was night and the stars were out and there was wildlife noises outside, was the game Cartographers. So Cartographers is a gem of a little game set in the world of roleplay, where each player gets one of these blank map sheets where you can come up with the name of your cartographer, your title, you can fill in the little emblem and make it really thematic. Down here you're going to be filling in this little grid using the cards that come from this exploratory deck. And if you draw a ruins card, you're going to have to place your little shape over this ruins icon. If you surround a mountain, you get a coin. Coins net you victory points at the end of each season. And down here, this is where you're going to record all your points across the 4 seasons and your final total at the end. Now, throughout the game, there are going to be 4 ways to score. And throughout each season, as outlined by this season deck, in spring, you're going to be scoring objectives A and B, summer B and C, fall C and D, and winter D and A. So each scoring objective is going to be essentially scored twice throughout an entire game. In this particular card, we're scoring every farm that's next to a ruin space is going to net you 3 victory points, and every water space adjacent to a ruin space is going to net you 1 victory point. In the Wild Holds card, if you have a cluster of 6 or more villages, you're going to gain 8 reputation, and you're going to earn 6 reputation or victory points for each completed row or completed column of filled spaces. Then you've got the Stoneside Forest, where if you are able to connect 2 different mountains together through forests, then you're going to gain 3 victory points per mountain space. Each round of the game has a timer indicated in the top left-hand corner of the season card. So when you flip over the cards in the Explore deck, there's a little time symbol in the top left-hand corner. If it is equal or greater to what's listed on the season card, it'll be time for scoring. Now, when you look at these Explore cards, you'll see that there's some cards with 2 terrains on them and a shape. And what players will need to do is they'll need to pick the terrain that they want and then color in that terrain in that shape onto their actual map. We've also got these purple bad boys, these little ambush cards that when you draw them out of the Explore deck, you have to pass your map in the direction shown on the card, and then the other players will have to draw these little goblin symbols on your map. And at the end of the round or season, you get -1 point for each goblin space that has an empty space adjacent to it. Cartographers, I know, was nominated for Spiel des Jahres. It is a really cool flip and write game. Luckily, the Airbnb had some cool colored pencils, and we were able to color in and illustrate and just really make the maps look really cool and awesome. Huge cool puzzly element to the game. The scoring conditions are all very different. You've got one that involves mountains and forests, and one that involves the layout of your map, and another one that involves rivers and farms, and the final one I think is to do with the arrangement and configuration of your villages on your map. And then you've got the ruins cards that appear, where you have to try and place your little shape over the ruins on your map. And then we flipped over to the other side of our map, and there was a chasm, and the geography of the game is brilliant, and it's probably the best, one of the best in its genre of the roll and writes and flip and writes. And oh man, I just absolutely love playing this game and then just watching the sunset behind the cliffs and just sitting in front of the fireplace and playing. It was so much fun and so thematic. It's going to be one of my all-time favorite games to play. Managed to finally play World's Fair 1893. I have had this game for years. I initially bought it because I just was so intrigued by the theme, but never actually got around to opening and playing it. I always looked on the back and was really puzzled by how it all worked. I didn't even look on Board Game Geek to find out how it worked. It was an impulse buy, and finally I said, on this honeymoon, I am going to play this game. This is the beautiful beast known as World's Fair 1893. Now there's some really cool mechanisms that kind of connect this game together and really provides for some very interesting decision making. And it's going to mark how long it's going to take before the round ends and scoring begins. Now you'll notice that on this map there's different zones, and you're going to be playing this game across 3 rounds. You've got the electricity zone, manufacturing, fine arts, transportation, and agriculture. You'll notice that this game is set up for a 2-player game. It's one of my favorite games I played on the honeymoon, and you'll see that in each zone there are different colored cubes, one representing one player and the other representing the other player. And you'll see that on the edge of the board there are different sets of cards. And what essentially happens in the game is that on your turn you're going to place out a supporter represented by these cubes, and you're going to place it in a zone. So I might place it over here in the fine arts, which you can see the blue player now has the control of the red zone, and then as a result of placing a cube there, you get to take all the cards from that edge of the board. Now you'll see in my hand I've got an exhibit card, an influencer card, and a midway card. The midway attraction cards, for each one that you collect, you're going to move this little carriage around the Ferris wheel. So as I said earlier, it's going to act like a little ticker timer, and when it gets to the end, you're going to trigger some scoring that's going to happen. The other thing that you're going to be doing is you're going to be collecting these exhibit cards that are represented in 5 different colors, and the exhibit cards that you're going to collect are going to be converted into these little approval tiles. Now you only get to convert these exhibit cards into approval tiles if you have the greatest amount of supporters in that particular colored zone. So in order to be able to convert this into one of these cool little tokens that scores me points, and you can see here that if you have 5 different colored tokens, you're going to get 15 points. 4 different colored ones, you're going to get 10. It's got that little set collection element. You need to be able to have greatest dominance. And at the moment, in the yellow electricity section, I currently, as the blue player, have the greatest dominance. So if this carriage were to end here right now, I would convert some of my yellows into those little tokens, and the amount that you can convert is going to depend on the number of players. So for example, in a 4-player game, if you're first, you get to convert 3. If you're second, you get to convert 1 only. So notice that a lot of these exhibit cards are going to be spread in different places around the board. Like this one over here has got a red, a grey, and a green. So if you're vying for those 3 colors, you want to make sure you've got dominance in those regions, but then also you've got a place in this region in order to collect those cards. So it's kind of got this really interesting seesaw effect that occurs. Also, you've got these really cool influencer cards which help you to move your supporters around to the different regions of the board. So this one, Cyrus McCormack Jr. is going to add 1 supporter to the green zone. And Bertha Palmer, you're going to be able to move one of your supporters to another zone on the board. It's such a fun game because you're trying to send supporters out to different exhibits so that you have the most support and the most backing behind different categories of exhibits that are at the World's Fair. It actually kind of reminds me of running an election. I think this game could have been rethemed as an election game where you're sending out voters and you're picking up influencers and then using those influencers to move supporters around. It has this very interesting Ferris wheel mechanism where you get a midway ticket, and then that kind of is like the ticket timer effect that kind of determines how fast the round goes. You're faced with this drafting decision around the game board itself, where you've got to pick from different areas, and where you pick from is where you've placed your supporter. And if an area hasn't been picked for a while, it's going to accumulate a lot of cards and gives you the options for the next round. It's just got this beautiful puzzly element that I've just really enjoyed. The third game that I got to play on the honeymoon was Res Arcana. Now, Tom Lehman is a game designer who's designed games like Race for the Galaxy and one of my favorite games, Roll for the Galaxy. So when I saw Res Arcana, it was a very big impulse buy as well. I kind of liked the fantasy look of the game. I thought, oh, I hope this game isn't just another fantasy game, but inside is a meaty package of economic and resource conversion where you are going to have a deck of 8 different artifact cards, which varies from each game that you play. So you're going to be able to build this kind of resource conversion engine. And what essentially you're going to do in Res Arcana is you're going to try and be the first player to get to 10 victory points first, and you're going to trigger the end of the game, and the player with the most victory points at the end of the game is going to win. Now at the beginning of the game, you're going to start with a deck of 8 artifact cards, and these are going to be drafted if you're playing the advanced version, or just randomly picked from this deck. Now it's probably better to play the draft version because you get to pick what artifacts go in your card, especially if you play this game a couple of times. You might know what sort of strategy you're going for. You're then also going to pick a mage. So there's a huge heap of different mages in this mage deck, and they're also going to have a special little ability. So here I'm going to be able to claim some life at the beginning of every round. So what you're going to essentially be doing is you're going to be playing artifact cards. You're going to be trying to produce different resources. So you've got life, you've got Elin, you've got calm, you've got death, you've got gold. And then what you're going to be doing is you're going to be using those resources to pay for the different costs of cards from your artifact deck that appear in your hand. And when you pay for them, they've all got lots of different abilities. Now there's a lot of iconography here, which is very quickly and simply explained on these 2 cards here. And once you familiarize yourselves with the iconography, the gameplay should feel a lot smoother. Also on your turn, you're going to have a magic item card, which you're going to swap every time you've passed your turn and head into the next round. Then you're also going to try and use your resources over here to try and claim places of power. And this is ultimately the way you're going to score. Some of the cards here have different victory points as well. And you've got monument cards that you can claim using 4 gold. And they're going to give you victory points. But these ones here, these 5 places of power, ultimately the way you're going to actually get victory points. And so From your artifact deck, you're going to create a resource conversion engine. And using that resource conversion engine, you're going to try and put resources on here and then convert the resources into victory points. And they all work in different ways. And that's what I really love about Res Arcana is the synergy that is involved from game to game, and the variability that you're going to get from this game is excellent. The final game I got to play was a game that I picked up because I had been to this location. So about 5 years ago, I traveled to Venice, Italy, and on one of our days off, we decided to travel to Burano. And when I saw this game, I thought, oh, it reminded me all of those beautiful quiet canals and restaurants and colored buildings in Burano. And having visited Burano, I just thought, wow, this game is going to evoke a lot of those memories that I had on that holiday. So let's have a quick look at what you can do in this game and why I love it so much. Now, when I played this on my honeymoon, there's the sound of the beach in the background. It was sunny, it was lunch. So it's a really cool, chilled game to play while you're on holidays or if you're having some time off. Now, what you'll see here in front of you is your aim is to build a 3x5 grid, essentially 5 terraced buildings on the canals of Burano, and that will trigger the end game, and then you'll be doing some scoring. Now, what you're essentially going to be doing is you're going to be drafting from the 3 different columns of cards, with each row a different level of your building. So you got your roofs, your level 1s, and your ground floor levels, which have shops and little residential fronts. Now, you'll notice that in the pictures there's a lot going on, but all the elements of the pictures are considered for scoring purposes. So even the little pedestrians on the street and even the shop style and the little crosses in the windows, they all factor into scoring at the end of the game. So it's really important to take note of what's in the pictures. Then what you'll see down at the bottom, you've got some tourists, and the tourists will score in different ways. So this guy will give you 2 victory points for every cat, every little window awning, little lamp or chimney that's in your column at the end of the game. So it's going to come over here into your tableau and you're going to be scoring. So you'll see that there's a lot of other different ways to score, and I'm going to quickly show you how a turn looks in this game. You've also got these residents over here who work in Burano, and they're going to be able to score you points based on your entire tableau. So you get 4 victory points for every pair of blue and white window coverings that you have in your tableau at the end of the game. And some of the cards themselves are also worth victory points on their own. So on your turn, what you're going to do is you're going to pick a column. Then you are going to decide whether you want to take 1, 2, or 3 cards. If you take 3 cards, you can take all the floor cards from the column and then place them in your tableau. If you decide to only take 2, you've got to decide to start from the top or start from the bottom, and you pick 2. So I might pick the orange and the yellow from the top, and for each one that you don't pick, you get a coin that you can use later on to spend. Very important, because the cards that you draft are going to go in your hand, but then when you place them out, you have to pay coins to put out a certain number in your tableau. So for example, if you just want to place 1 card in your tableau, you're going to pay 1 coin. And then you're going to place it out, and you can use the scaffolding cards to help you build your houses. Obviously, you can't have a card that looks like this, but it can go over the scaffold like that. If you want to put out 2 of these building cards, you need to pay 3 coins. If you want to put out 3 cards, you're going to pay 5 coins. Now, you may have noticed here that the colors here don't match. At the beginning of the game, you're going to have these little star markers. And for every time you place something that doesn't match, because you need to build a building of all the same color, you lose 3 victory points. And so by removing 1, you're gonna keep track of how many times you're able to break that color matching rule. Now, if on your turn you finish building a house, you then get to come over and choose either one of the tourists or one of the residences that appear in this little spread on the side of the board. You're then going to choose one and then add it to your tableau. So here, this guy is going to score you 1 victory point for every plant in the column of your house that you've chosen. This one here is 3 points for every cat that appears in your column. So if I pick this particular tourist, I'm going to place her right underneath there. She's going to score me 2 victory points, but I've got 3 cats in this column. So at the end of the game, I'm going to be able to score 9 points, plus the 2, and then I'll also get 3 points for this little shop window too. Notice these little X's, I'm probably going to lose a point at the end of the game. It's just a fun game that just has some really cool medium level thinky weighted decisions. There's a lot of ways to score, but there's a lot of combinations that can be had, and you can even mix and match the colors, but you do have to take a penalty when you build a building with, you know, 2 or 3 different colors. But it feels like it's a balanced probably low to mid-weight family game that I definitely recommend and plays really beautifully at 2 players. What a beast. Thank you once again for joining me for another Board Game Sanctuary vlog. Whoopee! And hooray to getting married! Yes! Now, if you really like board games, please remember to like, subscribe, and share this video. And please let me know in the comments below if you want to see more vlogs or if you want to see more board game review videos. Got a couple more coming your way in the next coming weeks. I hope to chat to you guys again soon, and it's time to play some more board games. See you guys later. Bye.